So last time on Higurashi,
we went insane.
and we saw that if you were to do like some kind of Captain Planet bullshit and like stick all of the or like Power Rangers bullshit and like stick all of the main cast together to make some like super being, you would end up with a psychopath named Takano.
Are you telling me that Takano is equal and equivalent? Like if we were doing with equivalent exchange here in alchemy, that we would have her be equal and equivalent to the club members? Is that what you're telling me?
I think that's what I'm getting at.
Are you telling me that if you were to add one more character who perhaps is not part of the main crew, that we would have something that's a different consistency to Takano?
That's crazy, Ben. Are you saying that there is thematic consistency to this novel?
Are you telling me that alchemy is a thing that Higurashi is obsessed with?
Listen.
And like equivalent things and thematics and backstories.
Since we last recorded, I found out that apparently the principles of alchemy were still treated scientifically seriously less than 100 years ago.
Really? I didn't know that, but yeah, I believe it.
Apparently, the foundation for special relativity came from an experiment that was initially meant to prove an alchemical concept.
Did it prove the concept, though? Did it prove alchemy was real?
No, but the evidence led to uncovering the principles of special relativity.
I mean, that's cool, I guess, but I'd rather be able to turn lead into gold with space magic.
That'd be great, except that then gold becomes less valuable. And
that's true.
You know, it's like when people say, "Why? Well, there's an asteroid out in space that's made entirely of diamond, and if we could just get that, it's like, sure, we have a bunch of fucking material."
I was gonna say,
it'd drive the price down into oblivion.
Yeah, it'd drive the price down, and I feel like the amount of money and time you would spend getting access and human life dying in space trying to get access to that diamond would not be worth the profit you'd make. I'm just saying, it's not worth your time. Stay on Earth, bleed the planet dry, much better option.
That's right. Do a capitalism.
Do a mining everywhere, especially at heritage sites. That's where the diamond is. Why do you think
we're going after Australian industry right now, Ben? How what we're doing? Taking them to task? I wasn't going to
specify anyone, but I'm just saying, if you've played a video game, you know that where there are like monuments and like interesting landmarks, that's where the diamond is every time. That's where the quest items are. So we need to dig into all the really important places, Uluru, flatten it, diamond right underneath. That's why it was built there.
If you want some serious journalism instead of hot takes, 2ser.com is the place to go.
Go to that environmental one that I was on where I talked about dying from black lung.
Oh my goodness.
That one. That was amazing. Yeah. That's my greatest piece of theatrical work I've ever done in my life.
I'll put a link to that in the description. It's so funny though, because it's like, it's an entirely serious story, but us listening to it was just us pissing ourselves laughing because of how hammy it makes you just being like, I was sick sound.
I was dying. It's great though. It's 100% true, but it is dramatized to hell and I love it. Anyway, we were reading Higurashi, I guess. I don't know who this is, so I'm just gonna like...
Neither do I. Take it away.
Back with the back end over. One more speaker, then the toast starts. Are you ready?
This is the back end. We're ready.
The hell is this?
We can't hear anything from inside, so please give us a cue when the speech is wrapping up.
Listen up. 10 bottles of beer per table. Make sure to deliver them to your areas smoothly. Young hotel work. What is happening? What is this scene?
What the fuck is this
There's
mess?
a toast. Is this...
Are we doing a meta-narrative of people watching the story unfold?
I think this might be to do with Takano's grandfather and his work, but I'm not certain. We might be flashing back to that. Young hotel workers dressed smartly in bow ties pull bottle after bottle out of the beer cases, preparing for the toast, and they counted them and they sang. 100 bottles of beer in the case, 100 bottles of beer, take one out, put it on the table, 99 bottles of beer in the case. I'm going to stop there because that's a long song. We don't have that much time.
We do not.
Although if somebody wanted to, record me singing the entire bottles of beer song, I would be happy to. If somebody wanted to just throw that up on YouTube. I'm not saying anybody could do that, but, it'd be a fun project. They waited for their cue to serve the drinks while listening through the intercom. At a normal party, they could put bottles of beer on the wall on the table ahead of time, but why'd you laugh? I was doing so well. I was doing so well getting through that sentence without smiling, and you got me. You
I'm sorry.
bastard.
I'm sorry.
But if there was a lecture before the party, then they couldn't. Guests don't mind sushi going dry due to a long speech, but they don't like seeing their tables get wet with condensation from the bottles of the beer on the wall.
That's right.
On the table. And more than anything, they certainly don't want to drink warm beer on the wall on the table. That's why beer on the wall on the table has to be served right before a speech. I assume it was speech. However, there's always a speech before a toast, and usually a long one. Especially at a big party like this, there are lots of guests that give speeches, so it's extremely difficult to know when to serve. For that reason, the bottles end up sitting outside by the banquet room. And people end up drinking warm beer anyway. That doesn't sound good.
What was the point of that entire stretch if we're just going to go, fuck it, we drink warm beer anyway?
It's a science, okay? You have to understand the principles.
But clearly they don't, so why are we bringing it up?
It's important to the story, okay?
Damn it,
warm
Ryukishi.
beer is important to Ryukishi's lifestyle, okay?
This bougie individual.
He drinks lots of warm beer and he hates it, and this is his chance to strike back against the fucking warm beer society. It's bad.
Okay, this is like a really culturally out of touch question.
I was gonna keep going.
But I thought warm beer was like a thing in Japan.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
I've heard of that. Why?
I was just wondering if that was like just me being a deluded individual or whether that was actually a thing. But I'm fairly certain that that's Or maybe it's sake. Maybe that's the warm alcoholic beverage.
I don't know. I just know I've watched a TV show about an old man trying to decide whether or not to drink beer in the middle of the day. And it's the best fucking 20 minutes of my life. It's literally 20 minutes of him deciding if he's going to drink or not. It's so good. Shout out to Japanese Samurai Gourmet Samurai, whatever the fuck it's called. Go watch that. So Samurai Gourmet Samurai. Here's the second one. Point is, there were several dozen tables with white tablecloths on them in the banquet room. Why isn't it pronounced banquet? Anyway, approximately 8 people were sitting at each table, so there were at least a few hundred people in the room. The banquet room was filled with excitement. There were many plates with many different kinds of food on each table. A sushi platter, a sashimi platter, a fruits platter. I want that fruit. I'm getting hungry, honestly. Also along the wall, there were cooks ready to serve fresh sashimi.
I was surprised you didn't put in a bottles of beer joke there, the first mention of an actual wall.
I should have. I'll get it next time. All the guests appeared to be wall-mannered gentlemen, and clearly
No.
and clearly were notable people in various different fields. The huge and beautiful chandelier above them clearly indicated this hotel held a status good enough for those famous people. An elderly gentleman was giving a lengthy speech on the stage before making a toast. Usually people don't like such long speeches, especially if it's before a toast.
I've never heard Ryukishi repeat himself.
But the ghosts?
The ghosts.
The ghosts! He gave a speech to a bunch of ghosts drinking warm beer. But that's how you exercise a ghost, warm beer. But the guests occasionally shouted, yes, yes, and sometimes gave him loud applause, filling the room with their fervor. Or maybe fervor was a pleasant way to put it. It was probably more accurate to say their excitement was bizarre. Oh, shit. Is this the boy? I guess it must be.
Who's the boy?
Is it fucking old man Jenkins or is it some random guy?
I don't know. Just take it away.
Which country would actually teach people not to show respect towards their own flag? There are no others. It's happening only in Japan. Says someone.
Historically inaccurate.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Is forcing people to respect their national flag and anthem an obstruction of their freedom? That's a foolish idea. Listen, love for one's national flag and anthem comes naturally to all. To know ourselves, to know our culture, to understand our history and our country itself.
This is uncomfortably close to home.
Yeah, I was expecting this, but like, fuck, I'm into it. Let's go. Those are the things that make you realize that you're a Japanese citizen, that make you understand the part you play as a citizen of this great country, and the feeling you get from that is love towards your own country, and nationalism is really great and has no problems. However, those anti-Japan teachers are proclaiming that it's militaristic brainwashing. Lol. Those stupid claims are wrong. What are those people doing anyway? They're teaching our children to hate being Japanese. They're the ones brainwashing them with this self-destructive education. They're teaching our children that Japan should be ashamed of itself and that they should be ashamed of being Japanese. Forget who you are and deny your country. That's what they're teaching them.
Shout out to Solari Gentil.
I know, right? Shout out to everybody we have on Death the Reader. Let's be real. Those innocent children listen and believe such nonsense. Of course they do. They go to school to learn things, right? If their teachers teach them that, of course the children believe it. Can you believe such corruption exists?
I am so uncomfortable reading this in a way that I cannot express adequately.
We just gotta ham it up and go with it, dude. This is painful for all of us. We must do something about this country's education now, no matter what it takes. Everybody applauded, and the sound of applause filled the banquet room. All the gentlemen agreed and expressed that they felt the same way, and they loved Japan, and they wanted to make Japan cool again. They felt the same way by cheering him on. You're the one who brought it up indirectly.
Maybe I was talking about 1930s Shanghai, Ben.
No, you're right.
You
maybe
wouldn't
you
know.
Maybe you were talking about the Nixon administration, the Vietnam War. Maybe
that's right. Maybe I was talking about. Maybe I was talking about, Britain.
Yeah, maybe you were talking about some country that isn't America.
That's right.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Never heard of that country. What country? What country did you say?
I've already forgotten it.
Okay.
Murder or something. I don't know.
All right.
It's really this murder mystery. And they expressed that they felt the same way by cheering him on. After that, a gentleman wearing a cloth sash approached the stage, and nothing else. The whole welcomed him onto the stage with another round of thunderous applause. A rousing theme from a popular drama series played as he took the stage, but it was entirely unnecessary before the overwhelming applause. The man's sash carried his name written in large letters, along with the name of the prefecture he was running for office in. Oh my god, okay. I mean, who's speaking? Is this
I think
the
this
guy
is
with
you
the sash?
introducing the
Or is
new
this-
guy.
I was going to say, surely. Let me introduce you to a patriot, Blancoin. This man has served the former governor as his right-hand man, as director of the office of the governor for many years, supporting the prefecture's government of the governor for a long time. Since the previous governor has decided to retire, he was appointed as the next person in charge.
I've never heard.
It's so funny. Because, I've read amateur writing, which has, the same word repeated over and over again. I forgot that Ryukishi is, just as culpable for this, if not more so, than, straight-up amateur writers who've never written their life. It's perfect.
You thought Ryukishi repeating himself was a joke.
I know. I've realized it's just a fact. Unfortunately, we have those anti-Japan teachers in our prefecture. Well, they proclaim freedom of speech and education and freedom of thought. They're shamelessly forcing anti-Japan education down on our children. They don't teach real history. They teach our children that everything was Japan's fault. They don't even mention the true purpose of the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. Or all those who fought to save Asian peoples from Western control. Those others are the worst.
That's right. Taking responsibility for your actions does suck.
It's just like erasing history. They don't even talk about how Asian countries were actually Western colonies before Japan stood up for our freedom during the war. Our country has recovered amazingly since then, yet our children don't know any of that because those teachers, they don't teach them. Oh, how truly, truly sad. Makes me mad. I can't stand the fact that those anti-Japan teachers are actually teaching our children alongside those teachers who take teaching seriously. They are insulting our educational institutions. I will become a governor and get rid of those teachers. I'm pretty sure this is the other character, but it doesn't matter. They're the same character.
They're the same
They're
character.
the same man with two suits. I straighten out our education system. He just puts on a sash and becomes a completely other person.
It's
That's
like
how it
the
works.
opposite of 3 kids in a trench coat.
Yeah.
It's 3 trench coats and a kid.
What? Can a kid make that voice? You know what? I don't want to hear that. Where was I? I was straighten out our education system and make sure our children will grow up to be decent young people who can carry out Japan's future. He, Blankun, announces his candidacy for the next year's prefectural governorship. We appreciate your support for him. I promise I will straighten out Japan's education system. Thank you for your support. Again, the banquet room filled with applause. The man was receiving a standing ovation because he's a good nationalist guy. I need to explain a bit about this banquet before you misunderstand.
That's right. There's so much to misunderstand here. What could possibly be going wrong?
Oh, God. It wasn't the conference of a political association. I'm scared about where this is going. I don't remember this in the anime at all. It wasn't the conference of political association or a lecture by a political candidate. It was hard to believe that this was nothing more than a meeting of a college's alumni association. What?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
Oh, God. Everyone should be familiar with what those are, whether it's and if you're not, you're fucked. Whether it's elementary school, junior high school, or college. Once you graduate from one of those, you normally belong to an organization of alumni. You receive invitations for reunions where you enjoy talking about the good old days.
Unless the apocalypse is on and your reunion gets cancelled.
It's true. However, there are many different types of such organizations. I will say I was very sad. My reunion actually fell apart because not enough people wanted to go. My high school reunion.
Aww.
So it was a whole thing. Anyway.
My last reunion, a bunch of friends, because our year was pretty tight. A bunch of friends tried to organize to get something together outside, and then just fucking everyone was so busy, schedules didn't line up. So we're like, we'll do it this year instead, and then the apocalypse happened.
Yeah. No, the closest I've come to that is that I recently reached out because probably my best friend from high school. I'm just gonna say my best friend from high school. Shout out to my boy who also read Higurashi with me. Or I guess watched. Anyway, I reached out to him because he was getting engaged, and I was like, I want to hang out with you. And it also just started working. So I was like, I'm going to treat you guys to lunch because that seems like a good friend thing to do. And we can catch up on the last couple of years. And it'll be great. And I can meet your fiance. And we basically shopped around for an hour trying to find the right, Chinese. We went to Chinese town or whatever in Sydney, and we were like, let's find something nice. And we spent about an hour trying to find something. We ended up the Golden Dragon or something.
Yeah.
It was something crazy and it was really good. But I looked at the bill afterwards and I was like, oh my God, that's half my paycheck. I was like, I fucked up.
I mean, listen,
So,
if you're eating in the city in Sydney, you've already just committed to that.
On the plus side though, they were recently were like, yeah, we owe you. We'll buy lunch for you occasionally because we totally owe you from that thing you did 2 years ago.
One of my friends, listen, I feel really bad about this to some extent, not because I did something wrong, but just because it reminds me occasionally of how out of touch I can be.
Oh my God.
One of my friends was like, how much would you guys expect to pay for pizza? And I'm like, I don't know, probably varies. And he's like, does $30 sound reasonable to you? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, what the fuck? I was like, what?
It was fine. It's a pizza, right? Oh yeah. No.
It's like, that's the most fucking money I've ever had asked me for a pizza ever. Yeah. It's like, what? That's just the normal cost around where I live.
That's insane. I mean, I'm $20 if it's pizza and also the person is hosting and you're getting other stuff with the pizza. But a pizza is $12. Why 30? How your pizza's $30?
Because, Ben, we live in Sydney and
you're insane.
We have lots of Italian communities with very upmarket approaches to the craft of pizza making.
You should switch places with me. You should come live out in the sticks, out in the middle of nowhere, go cow tipping and look after my sheep for a while. I saved my chickens. We don't have any of those anymore. You should go look after my goldfish and my sheep, and just enjoy that. You should learn how the other half live. Is what I'm trying to say.
You're right. You should get in touch because otherwise you end up like this alumni organization.
True, which we should probably talk about. There are many different types of such organizations of these alumni. Some are simple and some unite with much tighter bonds, like $30 pizza. And once the organization becomes united with those tight bonds, it's no longer a simple organization of alumni. Rather, it becomes a significant faction known as an alma mater clique. Now, I know that mater means mother, so I'm hoping we're going to get everything else translated.
Are you not familiar with alma mater?
No, what does it mean?
Oh, it's just another way for what school you went to. It's a very common way of saying it in the US.
All right. I've never heard of that in my life.
My alma mater is the school I went to.
Okay. Your mother's school probably is what that means. Anyway, because that's what mater means.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't actually know the direct translation.
Okay.
I just know that it's actually a common phrase.
Alma probably, it sounds like a feminine form of alumni. That's what it sounds like to me.
I think
Probably
so.
means school of mothers sort of thing. The syntax on that isn't perfect. Fucking don't savage me in the comments, Latin
Savage
nerds,
him in
but
the
like,
comments.
it's probably the genitive form, and so it's like of school, mother, like mother school of the person. Anyway, in Japanese society, it's traditional for graduates. I passed Latin. I didn't do well, but I passed it. It's traditional for graduates to form tighter bonds to go beyond the level of an organization. Also, the more superior the alma mater, the mother school, the stronger that tendency holds true. The Imperial University, oh my god, one of the best universities in the country, is famous for the deep bonds it graduates form. Oh, it's graduates form. It's like, graduates, they graduate, no, graduates.
You're full.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about Latin and alma mater now. Why do superior people like to bond? It may be because they take pride in being superior. But more than that, maintaining connections is the most significant reason. All Imperial University graduates are elites in their respective fields. They are likely to succeed and become important people. So this is why we're friends. When they do, the unity of their alumni association gains immeasurable meaning. In fact, even today, the Imperial University graduates maintain their tight academic clique, and they hold great influence throughout many different fields, and that's how they control the world. They interact with other universities as well, so the graduates' bonds are extremely tight even today. Additionally, while Imperial University usually refers to the University of Tokyo, sometimes it's used to mean all 7 major universities in Japan. That's a crazy term. They are located in Tokyo, Kyoto, Tohoku, Kyushu, Hokkaido, Osaka, and Nagoya. I almost got it. Nagoya. They're all great schools. It's a subjective statement. There happens to be an organization of alumni that includes all of those 7 universities. The elderly gentlemen in this banquet room were each from one of those organizations. However, not every graduate would get an invitation here automatically. It is a society of select gentlemen, and in order to become a member, one must fulfill several conditions, such as recommendation from an existing member, contribution to society, possession of status, and so forth. Therefore, all the members are important people from different fields, and obviously the power of this organization is of a political nature, but it's not strictly a political faction. But there's one more very important criterion one must meet to join. Strong nationalism, patriotism. A heart that longs to contribute to Japan and its rebirth. As a result, this organization has become extremely nationalistic. There it is. Up on the stage, the candidate for the prefectural governorship was still talking passionately. Among those elderly gentlemen in the crowd, Takano can be found. Takano seemed used to this kind of conference and seemed unsurprised at anything that was said. But at the same time, she looked rather fed up with it. As she was in attendance, she must have been one of their members, which meant she possessed not only an extremely excellent academic background, but that the older gentleman here had acknowledged her equivalent contributions to society and that she possessed strong patriotism. However, her academic background was the only qualification she had met to join. She was only able to join as a special case because of her connections. She didn't even hold prejudiced ideas like the other men. Well, that's nice of her.
Yeah, that's good.
Takano held no prejudiced ideas to speak of like the other members did. Would not wish misery on anyone. So why was she here today? Probably because of the same reason as the man giving a speech up on stage. To elbow rub? The man on the stage didn't actually have prejudiced ideas, much like Takano. He only prepared a speech that he knew the guests would like. Politicians only want votes.
It's so depressing, man.
How is this man so relevant? Each and every person has a vote, but appealing to each one of them takes too long. So the most efficient way to appeal to organizations with a unified idea and a unified will. Or is. In other words, this man was giving the speech so he can garner support from these powerful people. The elderly gentlemen in the banquet room will then do their best to support him since he appears to share their ideals, but he doesn't actually, and he will jump through many hoops, do many backflips in order to appear like he does. They can offer many different kinds of expediency, support, and assistance. To an outrageous degree, I might add. If the day's event continued in the same way, the organization would likely decide to officially support him. They will probably give him a great deal of financial aid. They'll assist him in different ways as well. Of course, the man on the stage won't be the only one gaining something. When he wins the election and becomes a governor next year, the organization will welcome the governor as a new member and gain even more political influence. So it's really just a great system for everyone.
That's right.
Everybody wins in this room. And eventually the organization will become so powerful that nobody can question it. And then they become the president. Those of you reading this right now probably get the sense that they're no mere alumni association. You'd be absolutely right. After reaching this level, they were a fine syndicate. No, there would be a secret society if the group wasn't so open about its activities. Now, I'm sure some of you readers are brushing this off, thinking
There's no way such a suspicious organization could exist.
In Japan. No, you forgot to add the in Japan part, Felix. Are you implying something by its absence? Anyway.
I hate everything about this.
I want to say this is the most depressing shit post I've ever been a part of.
This is the most depressing shit post. I back that. Holy crap.
But everything I've explained is entirely true, even in the 21st year or whatever the fuck we're in.
Listen, okay, Ben, I need to just dish.
Okay.
Because the thing is,
I'm gonna sit here and watch.
The thing is, right, is that people look at this kind of thing and they're like, there's no way, as it said, that such an organization can exist. But the thing is that this bullshit doesn't come about because people are like these great evil, terrible schemers who have the demise of everything plotted before them. They think they're doing the right thing. They're like, we've earned our place in society and we have the right to protect that place.
Yep,
and,
to be a voice, right?
You know, it's like, I having gone to like schools that are relatively wealthy and have alumni organizations that, you know, I'd say that a lot of the people that I went to school with were lovely, fine, genuinely great people.
That's good.
But at the same time, because a lot of them come from wealth, because a lot of them come from influence in particular, they lack a perspective of what it's like to not be from that position.
Yeah, for sure.
And one thing that I, on a personal level, have always struggled to kind of deal with is that by being in proximity to that culture, there are a lot of ideas that I kind of adopted unknowingly that the longer I am exposed to outside that culture, I'm like, oh, that's fucking terrible of me.
Yeah.
And like, I think one of the reasons this is uncomfortable is obviously because it's politically relevant at the moment, but because it like kind of represents a system that I have had to not necessarily escape or distance myself from, but become aware of so that I could deal with it in a way.
Yeah, it's just like being aware of your own like biases and influences and working with that. I mean, me personally, like I grew up in a wealthy enough family, let's put it that way. But I think it's partly because I lived in such a remote area. There were so few like kids and families in the area that I grew up in that like everyone who was there I was forced to interact with. So there was like the churchy goers, you know, those people who were like very upper middle class, like wealth, that sort of thing, very like, you know, what's the word? Conservative Christian family, you know, whatever. But also I would just come home one day and be able to look right into my neighbor's backyard because there's no fucking privacy and be like, those kids are having a bouncy castle, I want to go over there. And then I went over there and like our neighbors are very poor and the people up the street aren't, you know, doing so well. And like the people that I met at my church and just in the neighborhood that I lived in, like was much more varied than my parents' social circles.
Yeah.
Which I really have like an appreciation for now, even though I haven't like kept a lot of the ties with those people. Because yeah, it just gives you like a more worldly perspective. But yeah, I appreciate that you yourself, Flex. You got a lot to like be aware of, and you're a pretty smart person. But
thank you.
There are plenty of people who grow up in, I would say, privilege. And never realize that they had privilege. And then, you know, they say like, well, it was this way for me and I don't understand why it's this way for you.
I think,
why would you be afraid of cops? That's silly.
I think it's one of the really frustrating things about situations like this is that, you know, obviously the people who come from a position of privilege don't understand what it's like to not come from that position. But at the same time, the people who don't come from a position of privilege don't understand the other side.
Sure.
So the communication divide there is one of the difficulties I think that I find leads to people holding these perspectives.
Sure.
Because people are like, oh, you know, you have privilege and you should give it up because it's a terrible thing. And all they, you know, that to them, to people in a position of privilege feels like, well, you're taking away the things that I've worked for.
Yeah, the things that I've earned.
And like, you know, the disconnect of how that feels for both sides of the arguments, I think is one of the really difficult things that a situation like this struggles with. Because if you look at everything that's been said explicitly here, like if teachers are expressing thought control and openly like lying to students, Yes, that is a huge fucking problem. But the reason that these people believe this is because the position of academia has moved past them. So whilst what they're saying seems ridiculous if you know better,
Sure.
it's actually, in principle, a defensible position founded on malformed evidence.
I do think that it's kind of interesting that one of the things that she's kind of doing here is that by putting the scene with the orphanage, like one of the things that was highlighted in the orphanage scene was that the head of the orphanage is required to keep these kids here even though he doesn't like them, because for every kid that he has, he gets more money to pay himself.
Yeah.
So he's like doing a bad thing for that gain. And in this scene, we have an academic who's like running for governor, and even though he doesn't agree with any of the things that he's saying, he's still doing them to gain political influence.
Yes.
And I think it's a very deliberate choice to put those two scenes
absolutely.
like almost back to back.
Yeah.
It's kind of fucked up. Like,
For sure.
yeah.
You know, and as I've said on the show, I don't like kind of delving into personal philosophy because I think that trying to enunciate these things adequately without the tools to do so, if you don't have like a formal education in those things, is really difficult.
Yeah.
But I think in general, the fact that this story is dealing with the principles by telling them in a perspectived way helps get these philosophical ideas, these political ideas out in a much more palatable and reasonable way than if Ryukashi was kind of just espousing concepts, which is one of the problems I had with the very opening chapters of Kikonia.
Right. There's a lot of this telling, not showing sort of stuff. Yeah. I mean, we'll get to that at some point, but yeah, I really appreciate the way that we are seeing, like, we're seeing the development of an individual. That's what the like narrative is of these scenes. We're seeing Takano's development as a person and understanding, like, you know, she doesn't care about these ideologies, but she's still exposed to them, and like seeing where her actions differ from the politics that she associates herself with. I think is something that you'll really enjoy, Felix.
Sure.
Let's go. There are several such influential groups and organizations in our society, and you need to understand that they hold powerful political clout and influence our national policies. Some are alma mater cliques like the one I've described above. Others are scientific societies serving different parties, industrial groups, advisory committees, religious organizations, community service groups, and so forth. Also, there are right wings and left wings, the hawk and the dove. I won't go listing their specific names here. You probably read them every now and then in your average newspaper. What a fucking quaint sentence. Every now and then in your local newspaper.
That's right.
Try every 5 minutes on Twitter. Okay. In Japan, the terms for such forces aren't very common, or at least they weren't. Most of you readers probably think of suspicious organizations wearing white hoods when you hear the phrase secret society and laugh it off. They're not very secret. But unfortunately, that's a huge mistake.
I think you're thinking of the wrong society.
Am I? You know what? They're all pretty bad. In America, where there's far more territory and citizens, there's way more groups like that, and they possess a vast influence that ignoring them is impossible. So the terms they use for such forces doesn't apply to those on the scale of the syndicate. Sometimes people say that such groups have more power than the White House, and they're referred to as the shadow government, the deep state. Even here in Japan, we had a shadow government before the war, our Zaibatsu. After we lost the war, the GHQ dismantled those blocks, but didn't that used to be the full general headquarters? Didn't that used to be that in like Arc 6? Has he actually decided to abbreviate his fucking long terms?
I swear he's used the GHQ before.
I wonder. It's okay. It's been a while since we've recorded. Ever since we lost the war, the GHQ dismantled those blocks, but 40 years have passed since then. There's no guarantee our country hasn't given birth to another shadow government. Given how good we are at collusion, groundwork, and backroom deals, we're really good at those. New Takano was, in fact, attending a conference of such a shadow government. Are you telling me that Takano's into some backroom dealings, some like weird shadow deep state government shit? Is that what's happening?
Crazy, Ben.
Is that where this is going? It might appear to be a guest house at a huge evil golf course. There were no golfers in sight, but by appearances, that must be it. But appearances could be deceiving. This wasn't a golf course, but a huge backyard where you could play golf in. The guest house was in fact a very stylish mansion of Victorian design. Normal people would be surprised to learn that this was a private residence. The interior of the building was as lavish as the exterior. There were beautiful carpets on every floor, expensive-looking decorations on the wall, and expensive-looking bottles of alcohol on the shelves that were expensive-looking. That's the kind of room Takano could be seen in. There was a knock at the door, and an old man in a wheelchair and a young woman pushing it entered. As Takano stopped to bow, the old man stopped her by raising his right hand. "Oh, no, you don't need to stand up. Oh, long time no see. I've been telling you to come see me any time, but you never do."
It's great to see you, Koizumi-sensei.
The old man sat down on the sofa with assistance from the woman. He was very old. His face was covered in wrinkles and he could hardly do anything on his own. Even so, he still held a great deal of power and influence.
Oh my, you haven't changed a bit, have you? I can see lipstick on your neck.
Oh, is that right? Good grief, how embarrassing. Oh, it was a joke. I get it now. There was no lipstick on his neck. The woman who was helping him with his wheelchair was too beautiful to be a mere helper, so Takano had suspected something. As it turned out, her guess was correct. Although he was so old that he could die the next day, he wanted to stay sexually active until the very end. Admirable goal, this man. I wish I could be so...
Is that an admirable goal?
Honorable. Even the Grim Reaper would think that's just absurd.
I better be the Grim Reaper then.
Oh, Mio-chan, you've become quite beautiful yourself. You're not a little girl anymore, eh?
Oh, stop. If you really think that way, why do you try to touch my bottom,
Oh, what have you got to lose for an old guy like me touch your butt?
I'm sure you have plenty of chances to touch a softer butt, don't you?
What is happening, Takano?
I don't know, but I dislike it.
Okay. Takano and the old man enjoyed a tasteless conversation. At least it's self-aware. At least we're like on board with this shit. They had clearly known each other a long time and were very close. The young woman came back in to serve tea. After she left, the old man started to speak. Anyway, I'm so proud of you, Mio-chan. I'm sure your grandfather in heaven is proud of you too.
I hope so, but I'm not even close to approaching the level of my grandfather's great work.
Takano-kun was unlucky in many different ways. The era he lived in. If he lived in a different era, I'm sure he would have finished his research.
But he lived in that era, and ironically, that was why he noticed the existence of Hinamizawa syndrome.
There you go. The world today is in the nuclear era. With America and the Soviet Union glaring at each other over mounds of nuclear stockpiles, it takes nukes to have authority as a major power. Yet we've forever abandoned our nukes thanks to our 3 anti-nuclear principles. In this age, we are now a nation without nukes. How deplorable. In the middle of the 20th century, despite rising tensions between the East and West, there was a temporary peace known as the Cold War, brought by a balance of nukes pointed at one another. See, at least we're getting a history lesson.
That's right, a period of peace containing no wars.
No wars.
0 wars.
Except for the Cold War. Oh, and all the other wars. But you know what I mean.
Other wars.
Between specifically those countries.
Yeah, specifically those countries who didn't go anywhere else to fight proxy wars.
Permanent memberships in the United Nations were monopolized by nations with nuclear arms. They secured their predominance. Their predominance? I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah. They secured their predominance with nukes, bound the world with nuclear non-proliferation treaties, eternally banning non-nuclear nations from the world stage. For Japan to become a nation that can compete with the world, it must deploy nuclear arms or something as powerful. That's what some people believe, at least. Maybe giant robots. Realistically, Japan will never arm itself with nuclear weapons.
I know, the citizens wouldn't accept it. Even if the government ignored their opinions and armed itself with nuclear weapons, it wouldn't work.
By abandoning nuclear weaponry, Japan gained the deterrent power of the United States. Though some people thought the only way for Japan to become equal to the US would be to get nuclear arms of their own. But realistically, that was impossible. Even if Japan armed itself with nuclear weapons, that wouldn't automatically let Japan join the great powers, because you gotta play catch-up. Takano and the old man discussed the balance of nuclear power in the world. Eventually, the sound of the cuckoo clock symbolically reminded them to return to the main subject at hand. There we go. The old man pointed to the attaché? It's attaché, right?
To the case.
You monster. The old man pointed to the attaché case that had been sitting next to Takano. Takano nodded once, opened it up, and removed the contents. It was a bomb! Fuck! There were brand new nuclear bills packed in it. I finally got you again. Okay. How much was actually in there? A bundle of brand new million-yen nuclear bills is 1 centimeter, so there must have been at least enough to make up 8 digits. There were also 2 more attaché cases by her side. However, neither Takano nor the old man was surprised at all, because this was a drug deal, I guess. Takano closed the attaché case and bowed.
Thank you very much, Koizumi-sensei. I'll never forget about this.
Oh, money should be handled by younger people. I can't take it to heaven with me. I just hope this will be of assistance to you. Use it wisely.
Of course I will. I'll use this money only to make my grandfather's dream come true.
Oh, God.
I envy Takano-kun. What a wonderful grandchild he has. I'm sure he's bragging about you up there.
I haven't done anything yet. I'll have earned this praise when I complete my grandfather's work.
Oh, I'm so jealous. My boys are no good. They're only interested in making money. What really matters is how the money is spent. How you contribute to the country is what's most important. That's how you pay your debt to it, you know.
Oh, so you're saying that treating all those lovers so lavishly is also a way of repaying your country?
Of course. When they shop, the country makes money. Money goes around, you see. It trickles down.
However, those lovers would probably end up buying some foreign goods. Things probably don't work quite the way this old man says they do. Takano chuckled to herself like a witch.
But the money I gave to those women and the money I give you are completely different.
I know that very well.
You've worked very hard. You've retained trust and support from so many people. This is the first time I've mentioned it, but Hariyama-kun and Mochizuki-kun both weren't sure about you because of your age at first. That's why I'm acknowledging your efforts, and that's why I'm giving you this money.
I understand.
Indeed. Well, so for me to give you this money means that I recognize you as the official successor of Takano-kun's research.
Thank you very much. Thank you for believing in me. I truly appreciate it.
No, don't mention it. This research is Takano-kun's and yours too. He wouldn't want anyone else to take over, so thanks to all of your effort, I didn't have to spend too much time convincing the other old folks.
Completing my grandfather's research is the least I can do for him. I won't begrudge any efforts towards that aim.
Takano smiled as she remembered everything she had to go through to get to this point that we just recapped earlier in the story. It went without saying, but the old men around Takano saw her as someone from their grandchildren's generation, or maybe even younger. Just how much trouble did Takano have to endure in order to gain the trust of those with such a large generation gap? It was hard to describe to those who couldn't even imagine her trouble, but Takano earned it. She gathered allies, drove away enemies, garnered support, and forced them to recognize her. She spent a long time establishing trust and rising to a status that the old men would welcome, which was all the more reason this meeting was a reward for her many days of hardship. Now that she officially had a powerful influence backing her, she could spread her wings and see the completion of her grandfather's unfinished research.
Well, now that you're officially continuing Takano-kun's research, there's something I'd like to tell you, Mio-chan.
What is it? I'm listening.
The old man paused and pulled an expensive cigarette from the cigarette holder on the table. Takano lit it up for him. She didn't smoke herself, but knowing that the old man did, she kept a lighter in her pocket. The constant build-up of little gestures like that were how she gained the trust she held today.
Takano-kun noticed the Hanamisawa syndrome in Manchuria, not Japan.
Yes. According to my grandfather's journal, around Showa 15, he learned that many soldiers sent from Hinamizawa to the Kwantung Army expressed terminal symptoms, which led him to surmise that an unknown infectious parasite dwelled in Hinamizawa.
Under the harsh conditions of war, people sometimes lost their minds. In those conditions, those who were sent to a far-off battlefield from Hinamizawa spent their days under duress, and occasionally they exhibited terminal symptoms, hallucinated, and caused twisted accidents. Yet that all occurred in the extensive chaos of the battlefield. Every incident was handled separately, and no one suspected there was an underlying cause. There they are.
At the time, Takano-kun was working as a military physician in the Kwantung Army. He was researching the prevention of different infectious diseases. And one day he noticed that several incidents of deranged behavior were occurring among soldiers from the same hometown. He hypothesized that these symptoms were unique to those of Inamizawa and began his own personal research. He hired soldiers from Inamizawa's workers in his research center and studied them there. Then he learned of the unique Inamizawa faith in Ushio-sama, and he was convinced that he found an infectious parasite with unique properties. Some may wonder how he could be so certain that these symptoms were caused by unusual parasites. At the beginning of the 20th century, German doctors proved that some unknown diseases were caused by bacteria and parasites. At the time, it was too far of a jump to assume that unknown pathogens could be behind unknown diseases. Alright. For instance, in modern times, it's been revealed that beriberi is caused by vitamin B1 deficiency, but at the start of the 20th century, many loudly proclaimed that it was the work of an unidentified pathogen.
Yes, my grandfather predicted that this research would be valuable to the army, so he asked for a budget, but they laughed at him.
As a researcher, her grandfather was very talented and passionate, but when it came to gaining the aid of political powers, he simply struck out. Inamizawa syndrome, or the possible existence of a parasite that infected the human brain and controlled emotions. Even though he made the remarkable achievement of discovering a mystery no one had explained before him, he was unable to convince others of that achievement, and so he wrote 8 arcs of a story in order to explain it to his audience. And he also
was terrible.
It's true though. And spent his life alone, unable to garner support and unable to achieve proper recognition for his achievement. Independent research has its limit. Talented people, funding, and backup. A research project can be successful only if all these things are present. Takano had noticed her father's mistakes, and that was why she did everything she could to obtain all of those things. She's savvy as heck.
The military at the time was hoping for a low-cost, immediate-acting weapon, while Takano-kun's research was extremely intriguing and didn't meet the military's expectations.
But I heard you were the only one who understood my grandfather's research, weren't you? In his journal, he calls you his best friend.
Aw. We came from the same hometown. It was a miracle to run into someone from the same town on such a distant battlefield. Although we weren't close in age, we became very good friends, so we talked a lot. Many times he told me his research would be revolutionary and asked me to lay the groundwork to secure funding for full-scale research.
I read in his journal that you talked to many different people about his research. Unfortunately, its value was never recognized, but I'm sure your support meant a lot to him.
But I was never able to really do anything for him. That's why I want to help you, Mio-chan. Helping you is like atoning for my mistakes.
Thank you very much. He was lucky to have you as his best friend. If only there were more understanding people like you in the military's upper echelon. It's very regrettable to think that my grandfather's life might have been different.
She says all of this carrying an 8 million, case of fucking yen or dollars or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The old man closed his eyes and paused for a moment. Shortly after that, he looked into the distance and spoke.
Actually, that isn't true at all. The higher-ups are interested in Takano-kun's discovery.
What? I've never heard that before. Then why didn't they support his research?
Something came up and they couldn't let him look into Inamizawa's syndrome. Only a few of the top brass and myself knew the reason. Now that all but myself have passed, I think I should tell you, Mio-chan, since you're carrying on his work. The true secret.
What came up? What was it?
What was it?
Takano believed until this very day, this moment in fact, that her grandfather's research was ridiculed by everyone, which was the reason why it had never gained any recognition. Her grandfather had asked the military for funding so he could uncover the secret of Inamizawa syndrome during the war. But just like the old man had said earlier, the military wanted an instant-acting weapon. That was why they weren't interested in his research. That's what she had believed. But as it turned out, the military had actually shown an interest after all.
Before I go on, I need to explain about the Kwantung Army in Manchuria at the time. While the Kwantung Army was stationed in Manchuria, opinions were divided on whether to advance our forces north or south. At the time, Japan had troops in Manchuria, but opinions were divided on advancing north to deter the Soviet Union or advancing south to expand our territory and secure resources. With the Soviet Union and its predecessor, Russia, that's an interesting way of putting it, being a landlocked frozen nation, they had long yearned for an ice-free port that wouldn't freeze over in the winter.
They had made numerous attempts to expand their territory southward too. Those expansionist policies were said to be a cause of the Russo Japanese War.
And of course, the answer to that is more expansionist policies.
I don't actually know much about Russia and Japan fighting. Like, I don't know that much about it.
I can't say I do either, but
Like, I'm sure it must have happened, but like, I have not read anything about that
as far as I
conflict.
understand, it was just territory conflicts largely
Yeah.
over, I think, Russia trying to build a railroad into what was Japanese territory
Interesting.
along the mainland coast.
All right, let's learn about it. In the history books, it said that Japan won the Russo-Japanese War, but it was more like a draw ending in peace signed at the Treaty of Portsmouth. Both sides had simply set aside their spears after mutually exhausting their forces. It wasn't like Russia capitulated and offered a complete surrender. As a result, the perception of the Russian threat continued to smolder. Later, the Russian Empire was overthrown by a revolution, but Japan was unable to shake the threat that the new Soviet Union would advance south.
According to the history books, Japan went south. They signed the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact and abandoned the northern advance. As a result, when the Great Patriotic War began, the Soviet Union was able to respond to pressure on their German front by pouring in their eastern forces. Though the Germans had managed to lay siege to Moscow, the Soviets launched a massive counteroffensive to reverse the tides of war. Even with the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact, the Soviets couldn't tell that Japan would attack them at some point. Because of that threat, the Soviets had to leave some forces in the Far East, and they weren't able to devote enough troops to the German front. For starters, the Soviets had forged Germany's Soviet non-aggression pact too. Yet Germany broke that treaty and attacked the Soviet Union because they're a bunch of dicks. Well, they were. To make matters worse, Japan and Germany had forged a military alliance. With all those factors in play, the Soviets naturally couldn't trust Japan to uphold their neutrality pact. Ironically, the Soviet Union was the one who broke the pact, but I won't go into that now. That sounds like the most interesting part. Is this Mio, like, talking back?
Maybe.
Or was that supposed to be Mio's inner monologue?
Who knows?
I'm just going to keep going. Exactly, Hitler signed the Tripartite Pact because he expected Japan to keep the Soviets' other front in check, but ultimately, Japan abandoned the North. With the superior German offensive, many supported the idea of waiting and watching it play out. They believed that even if we did advance north, it would be after Germany conquered Moscow. However, the plan was exposed to Sergei, and the Soviets transferred the heavy tanks from their Far East border to the German front. That secured Germany's defeat at Moscow, and the Germans began seeing a string of defeats starting with the Battle of Kursk, which is in many video games.
It was a turning point in history, huh?
During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was recognized as a global power, but at least in Showa 15, the Kwantung Army didn't think it was a particular threat. Japan had earned a victory with the Russo Japanese War, and they took the new Soviet Union government lightly, assuming it wouldn't be stable after overthrowing the Russian Empire. Boy, were they wrong. That underestimation was corrected after the Nomonhan incident in Showa 16. Showa 16. After several fierce, short-term battles with the Soviet Union's advanced mechanized corps that led to great losses, the Kwantung Army realized they shouldn't fight the Soviets, and that inclined Japan toward the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact. But at the very least, up until the Nomonhan incident, the Kwantung Army was strongly conscious of the Soviets and divided on advancing north or south. Thanks to that, there were also voices advising caution, suggesting we avoid an all-out war with China in order to draw up our forces against the Soviets. They were thinking of fighting China too? What the fuck?
The Chinese and the Japanese have thought of fighting each other for all of history.
I know that, but they were like, all right, we're just going to fight Russia and China, two of the like largest countries in the world, and also like Australia and the British force. Like, fuck. They really weren't crazy just like fighting that war and sticking with it. Anyway. But the this is you.
The Sino-Japanese War broke out after the Marco Polo Bridge incident, right?
These are all events that I need to go research. Sound fascinating. July, Showa 12. The Japanese and Chinese armies were staring at each other across the Lugao Bridge in Beijing. It was the middle of the night on July 7th. The Chinese army fired on the Japanese army in training and they engaged in combat. This triggered the long Sino-Japanese War.
Yes, according to historical records, that incident triggered the Sino-Japanese War, but with opinions divided over advancing north or south, the army was equally divided over a full-scale confrontation with China. No, in fact, we even received orders from General Staff Headquarters to resolve the matter quietly before the incident grew much bigger. So those supporting the northern advance wanted to settle the Battle of Blue Grove Bridge quietly, insisting the conflict with China was pointless in light of their anti-Soviet strategy. I think that's pretty smart. However, those in the mainland supporting the southern advance used this incident as cause to dispatch more troops to China. They enacted hard policies against China, and thus the Marco Polo Bridge incident became the trigger for Japan and China to enter all-out war. After that, and their bitter struggles in the Nomonhan incident, Japan greatly revised their Soviet strategy. They signed the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact that I've mentioned many, many times and secured the route for their southern advance. So yeah, history. The Sino-Japanese War got worse and worse. Where's this leading to? If the Marco Polo Bridge incident hadn't happened, it's possible that history would have gone very differently. Maybe we would have ended up in a war with them anyway. However, if the South faction didn't get that chance, the military authorities could have kept restraining the Soviet Union, and the Soviets would have had to divide their forces between East and West. And maybe Germany could have invaded Moscow. Then Japan could have gone to Siberia. The map could have been very different today. We would have won World War II, is what they're saying. It's insane. Germany wouldn't necessarily have won the war if it had succeeded in taking Moscow. England was keeping its strength on the other side of Dover Strait, after all, and the United States was poised to enter the conflict. Besides, Napoleon once occupied Moscow, but in the end he couldn't beat their winter and had to withdraw.
It is one of those ifs, huh? The Axis might have won the war.
How dare you?
Yes, it's possible the gunshot from Marco Polo Bridge incident changed the tide of history.
Both sides had different opinions of who fired the first shot, right?
According to the Japanese side, a Chinese soldier fired a shot at a Japanese soldier who got too close to the Chinese camp. However, the Chinese side claimed that the shot was a conspiracy invented by the Japanese military. But it all turned out to be a big game of soccer, so it didn't really matter in the end.
But the shot was fired. Even though nobody knew who actually pulled the trigger, it sparked the Sino-Japanese War.
Yes, that's what the history books say.
But Koizumi-sensei,
Fuck yeah.
what does that have to do with my grandfather?
Sorry, I was just cheering that we actually got that right. It happens so rarely. Do we get points for that?
I don't think we do.
God damn you. Are we ever going to get points?
I'm pretty sure we're still in the lead. We'll be fine. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
It couldn't be anything else.
That's an old meme.
It is. It's not even one from this channel, so...
You're gonna have to cut it.
I know the kids will love it. Just bleep it out. Just be like, boop.
In the Marco Polo Bridge incident, a shot was fired at a unit that was training in the middle of the night. Everyone was summoned for a roll call. They were missing one soldier. This soldier came back later, and it was said that he was sent as a messenger. Are they about to say that this soldier came back later, and it was said that he was sent as a messenger and got too close to the Chinese camp? By the way, did you know that soldier was from Hinamizawa?
Oh, really?
Yes. When Takano-kun was talking about Hinamizawa syndrome, he said the soldiers from Hinamizawa could suddenly fall into a deranged state, and we realized that the soldier from the Marco Polo Bridge incident was in fact from Hinamizawa.
Then what about the first shot fired?
I don't know the truth. Quit interrogating me, but I think it's possible that a soldier within the terminal state of Hinamizawa syndrome fired the shot. Or was a fucking crazy person trying to charge someone with an axe and they shot him. It doesn't matter. That soldier was killed in the incident. Since there was no record of it, nobody knows exactly how he died.
Nice way of rounding out that typo there, Ben. It felt clean, even though it's a mess.
Doesn't matter. I got it. The Japanese side, also, before we get too insane, I'm becoming more and more appreciative of like historical fiction that's like, this is a real thing that happened. Let's like insert our story into a real historical thing. I find that like a good fun. You don't like it?
Listen, Solari Gentil has done a great job with her Roland Sinclair mystery series.
That we covered on the award-winning show Death of the Reader.
If you like historical mystery. And yes,
All It Is in
China
China is great. Yeah.
But this is so dry.
Yeah. Look, it is a bit dry.
like the good thing about Solari's work, and we love Solari dearly. She's a wonderful, wonderful writer. Is that she puts her characters into history and uses it as an opportunity to explore the climate.
This is an essay on like this is how history happened. Well, I could read a history book about this.
I'm not even necessarily like obviously this is fictionizing it by inserting the Hinamizawa syndrome thing, but even the like factual summary of what happened in the conflict, I'm not entirely sure that I trust Ryukishi as a source for it because I know. I've seen a lot of people in our comments critiquing his retellings of history, saying that they're very ignorant of certain contexts, that they are...
Well, I mean, one of the things that I thought was very interesting, that he mentioned Manchuria, like he's mentioned Manchuria multiple times, and like that is a war crime. Like Manchuria is a war crime now in history.
Yeah.
And that he will like, it's not the fact that he's trying to push his own narrative, but just the fact that he would drop Manchuria into a story and not address its context in history.
Exactly.
Is really fucking weird.
The other thing is, and this admittedly is a bias from the education system we have here, but the way that it was taught to me was that the Japanese, historically after the Kokoda Trail, which is like our main historical conflict with Japan during World War II, were very dismissive, ignorant, and unwilling to accept responsibility for misconduct on the Kokoda Trail.
Right.
Like just brutality as far as it was presented to
the Japanese. I mean, it's in every fucking video game, and like we're fighting the Japs, and they're like, we're gonna set traps in your dead and wounded, like like I'm not saying they don't do that, but like war is hell, both sides are shitty, that's just how it be.
Like obviously I contextually assume that there are also atrocities that our troops committed that we don't hear about because that's
because we live in that country.
But I think that this kind of style of Ryukishi's writing of history could come from that kind of education system.
For sure.
Where he knows of the history, but not the history.
Well, yeah. I mean, we know that Ryukishi gets his dad to do all his research, so like that's another interesting thing, that like his politics obviously they're his own in the text. As he's a social worker, so all that sort of stuff, all the like low scale stuff that he writes about, I feel is very genuine and real. But like if he's relying on his older parent to like write about like generational divides and or like research these things, like that's an extra filter that the information is being put through.
I mean, the other thing is in general, I don't care if Ryukishi is inaccurate with his history, as long as it is presented as such.
Just
which I think is the problem here, is that it is both incredibly dry and potentially inaccurate.
It's written like a historical document or like a documentary, which implies that it's factual.
And that's where the problem comes in. I think that when you look at like presentations of how he has spoken about, you know, the tensions in this conflict, that's fine. But when we get into the events and cause and effect, then
I mean, on the plus side, he is not saying like the Japanese were all good or the Chinese were all bad. Like he very clearly has said the Japanese claimed it was the Chinese side that was wrong, it was the Chinese that claimed it was the Japanese side. Like both sides, he doesn't demonize one side or the other in this argument. Even though he is obviously biased towards his own country, he's not going out of his way. Like I mean, he's in fact condemning those ideas, which I think is a positive thing. But yeah, he's literally just saying, this is the fucked up shit that happened. Here is my fictional explanation for how this misunderstanding came about. And with the story that is all about, like miscommunication, misunderstandings being blown out of proportion, it makes sense for him to pick an example like this, even if it could be written better.
For sure.
The Japanese side claimed that the Chinese army had fired them and negotiated with that in mind. Just a scant few days after the incident, Japan demanded an apology from the Chinese, and as a show of force, dispatched 3 divisions of reinforcements. The Chinese side was, of course, opposed to that. The situation escalated at once.
If research into Hinamizawa syndrome continued, the higher-ups thought it would negatively influence the Japanese army's claims, so in order to avoid the risk of traversing their political gray zone, they rejected Takano-kun's research.
So, because of that, they refused to even consider my grandfather's research long after the war ended, too.
Damn.
Yes, that's exactly it. The war is over now, but there are still some conflicts there regarding historical recognition. Even if Takano-kun didn't mean for it to happen, if his research into Hinamizawa syndrome became public, it might cause a resurgence of quarrels over the long-ended war that we definitely shouldn't think about or learn from. Certain authorities were afraid of that, so they made sure his research was ignored, even after the war. I was long warned not to aid him in any way or war myself.
Takano tried to remain calm, but she couldn't stop herself from grimacing. She had just found out the real actual reason why her grandfather's research had been ignored. It was because of secret maneuvers by political masterminds. That's a fucking sentence. If those political masterminds feared it so much, ironically that meant they acknowledged the importance of his research. Takano was saddened and frustrated to no end by her grandfather's lonely life.
However, they're all dead now. I'm the only man who knows this. If Takano-kun was still alive, I was going to apologize to him and give him my unconditional support. But he's no longer around. That's why I'm apologizing to you and offering to give you my full support instead.
Are you sure? Wouldn't research into the Hinamizawa syndrome dredge up those same subjects again?
But I'm the only man who can help you. It's different now. Research into the Hinamizawa syndrome may produce more than a mere local disease. Depending on your research, post-war Japan may gain a trump card that makes it a world power once more.
So the tides and times have changed, then?
That's right. Unfortunately, Takano-kun didn't live long enough to see that tide change, but he has you to continue his research. Now we can become his gods. So long as I'm alive, I'll give you my full support. I promised to help Takano-kun, but because of various things, I couldn't do anything. So I want to make up for that as long as I'm alive. I think that's the least I can do for the man who called me his best friend.
Koizumi-sensei, thank you so much.
Oh, don't mention it. I'm glad I was able to tell you everything before I died. Blah, dies immediately. Anyway, until I'm gone, I'll make sure you get everything you need, okay? So if anything comes up, be sure to let me know. I'll do anything for you.
Takano couldn't even imagine what kind of bond this old man and grandfather had between them. But thanks to that bond, Takano was able to gain a powerful supporter. Tears welled up in Takano's eyes as she gave him an emotional look, but in her mind, she was practically dancing at the promise of the old man's full support. The old man and Takano both bowed at the same time to show each other appreciation. Once that was done, the old man became a little more serious. After this far too lengthy preamble, he finally said what he really wanted to tell her.
So there you have it. This is what I wanted to say. The Hinamizawa syndrome has the potential power to make history. It may even twist the fate of our country, so keep that in mind and be careful with your research.
What happened to his lady friend? She was like, I'm gonna go make tea, and then she disappeared.
Who knows?
Whatever. After the proprietor finished serving the food, she bowed and left. The room was very tastefully put together, reminding them of a tea ceremony room. While it was sparsely decorated, quite a bit of money had obviously gone into it. This is a very famous Japanese restaurant where many high-up officials and other important people held secret meetings. Takano was there, accompanied by about 5 gentlemen. She was sitting slightly farther away from the men. They were clearly in a much more important position than she was. One of the men, wearing an expensive double-breasted suit, told Takano not to be so nervous. Please, relax, Takano-san. What we read is very interesting to us. I can't believe this research was just sitting here for dozens of years.
It is surprising. I thought most of the research on BC weapons the Japanese military conducted during the war failed to bear fruit, and nothing was left after the US military confiscated even the fundamental research.
I heard this research was barely even glanced by the top brass.
I see, so that's why nobody knew about it and GHQ didn't investigate. In that sense, at least, it was truly fortunate.
Interesting that Dr. Takano's research will be succeeded by a different Takano-san. I suppose that's fate. It's like the deceased is using your body to complete his life's work, like some kind of puppet god he was.
Maybe that's true. I feel a mysterious connection to him, too.
Takano adored Takano Hifumi and called him grandfather, but she hadn't revealed that relationship to others. She realized it wouldn't be beneficial for people to think she was involving personal feelings in her continuing Dr. Takano's research. So publicly, she once had exchanges with Takano Hifumi, and after his death discovered his research documents with his remains and chose to carry it on. It's very poetic. At least that's how the story went.
Well then, what do you think?
The defense agency was very interested. According to Nakagawa-kun, the defense agency's Technical Research and Development Institute showed great interest. They offered to sponsor the research too.
Oh, that's wonderful. Congratulations, Takano-san. Thank you very much.
Here's what they said. There's a research council for next generation deterrent being led by experts from several different ministries. They might call them some kind of shadow organization. I wouldn't worry about too much. One of those is called the Alphabet Project. That's a fun name.
Shout out to Google.
That's a fun name. Have you heard of it, Takano-san?
There was no way she would know about something like that, but it was very possible for those nationalists to research something dangerous without citizens knowing about it. Society forms something like a web made of connections between people. One might even call them nodes. People hold hands with each other who share the same ideas and end up knitting a net. Of course, some nets are well known, but there are some secret ones too. So there was an invisible net. That's a terrifying idea. What if there was a spider that could just spin an invisible web? That'd be fucked up. So there was no way of guessing just how the men at this meeting were connected. A society involving research into deterrent weapons for the next generation, the Alphabet Project. With those words, it was possible to imagine what that might entail.
A search engine, a video streaming platform, an email service.
A web of letters connected to each other by their lines and dots.
Deterrent weapons, this usually refers to nuclear technology.
Also, listen, I hate to explain a joke, but you are aware that Google's official corporation name is Alphabet Corp.
I didn't actually know that. I'm sorry. I was not aware. I figured you were just saying because you type letters into Google.
Nope.
So whatever.
Nope, that is a real thing.
Why is that a thing? Why are they called the Alphabet Corp?
Because they just wanted to sound as evil as possible when they, made the shell company for their different...
Fascinating. That's just how it be, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weapons are normally used to destroy enemies, but Google was different. However, the general idea of deterrent weapons is very different. The assumption is that they won't actually be used against anyone. Nuclear weapons are largely used as a threat to prevent enemy invasion. It's true, because you got the MAD syndrome.
That's right.
It's facts. Both the US and Soviets possess large stockpiles of nuclear arms to keep each other in check, but they will never actually use them, because if they did, there'd be a nuclear war, and that would suck. And they'd both be destroyed. So they're like a legendary weapon you never draw. Of course, that last resort only works because both sides have nuclear weapons. If one side lacks them, then they lose all military negotiation power. In other words, nations without nukes are powerless before nuclear-armed states. Is this just some guy, I guess?
Just take it away.
Sure. Oh, that can't be true. Japan abandoned nukes and it still functions as a nation today. Or so some people may be thinking, but they're idiots.
They're wrong.
They're dummies. Japan,
what fools.
What fools? Japan abandoned nukes, but lies under the nuclear umbrella by allying itself with America. That means the nation functions thanks to America's nukes. However, that also means we must resign ourselves to forever being a vassal of America. In order for Japan to escape that and become a powerful nation equal to America, it must possess its own deterrence arms and step out of that nuclear umbrella that it is under. That society must have been put together by experts believed in that ideal of moving out from the umbrella that they are under America. Given that, even the name Alphabet Umbrella Project makes sense. Nuclear weapons are weapons of mass destruction. However, where is this going? Weapons of mass destruction aren't always nuclear. Sometimes they're words, sometimes they're letters. They also include biological weapons and chemical weapons. Atomic, biological, chemical. The initials of these three words
How
make
the
up
fuck
APC.
did this work in Japanese?
I don't know. Let us know in the comments. Also, while we're talking about comments, let us know if you can disprove any of Ryukichi's weird historical shit that he's trying to pull here. I'd love to hear where he's wrong. That's why weapons of mass destruction is sometimes called ABC weapons. I've never heard that in my life. I won't go into weapons of mass destruction that don't belong to those three categories. ABC, alphabet. You see, the connection's obvious. Even an idiot could understand.
That's right.
In other words, Alphabet Project must be a code for research into weapons of mass destruction. It's so obvious.
Can someone flash the Google logo up on screen for me right now?
ABC, nuclear weapons, E. Done. As it happened, this guess of Takano's, guess, it was correct though. By rights, Japan possess. I'm not going with that voice. That's a show. That's too on the nose. Oh god. what did I have before? I had that
Australian.
like I was trying to by rights. I'm just trying to get that voice down. Australian Davis. There we go. By rights, Japan should possess nuclear arms, but we established ourselves as a peace-loving nation after the war, and after our vast international contributions, we've been recognized as a permanent member of the UN. Yet until we possess nuclear arms, we won't be recognized as a proper nation. That is the long-held desire of post-war Japan.
Exactly. However, realistically, thanks to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the major nations hold a monopoly on nukes.
Oh.
Worse, our domestic public opinion is growing allergic to nukes, so foreign and domestic pressures make implementing them impossible.
Too right. Biological and chemical weapons is sometimes known as the poor man's nuke. Small countries that can't own nuclear weapons have already started. We've already lost the accent. Have already started research in that kind of weaponry. Look, it's late. Okay, we're getting there.
It's not that late.
That was Takano. That was Takano. It wasn't even the Australian guy.
We can take points for that.
We can. 3
1
points.
point.
2 points. Compromise on 2 points.
2 points.
2 points.
Actually, let's go with 3. A, B, C.
What? I said okay, whatever.
I just had to work up to reason with you. You know.
Okay, I'm glad.
We have to at least seem like we're playing this game.
I'm just saying, that's not haggling. You're supposed to start at 1 and 3, and then you end up on 3. That's just bad haggling.
No. You have to at least seem like we're playing with some modicum of respect for Ryukishi's score.
We're not. I mean, you're right. We're not. We're
not.
That's foolish. I shouldn't lie much.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Can we look? Just think
Time
for a
out,
moment.
time out.
Obviously, the fact that the point system is dictated entirely by us already means we're cheating.
It's on the table.
But
Literally on the table.
the fact that the rules are that if we cannot tell, we get a point. But if we can tell, Ryukishi gets a point.
And we get it wrong. We have to get it wrong.
Then, by definition, we will end up with more points because if we didn't tell, we probably couldn't.
Who won in Mineko? Do you remember? Was it us? Or
It was us.
Okay. I believe we used a weird. I remember now. I remember when we won. What the fuck?
Listen, there are a lot of things in Mineko that led to us winning,
Oh my
aside
God.
from the actual points
Bullshit.
values.
Actual bullshit. But so good. I love gift boxes. Yeah. Okay. Look, I'm just saying we need.
You know,
a
we
system.
still have a truck, by the way.
Do we?
Yeah.
Was it a Coca-Cola truck?
No, it's just a truck. I think it's a little military truck I've put next to us.
Nice. Why did I give us that? I assume it wasn't me.
I don't even remember. It's just when we gave it to us, we at some point said to hide it, and it's been there in the points graphic ever since.
It's like Takano's trailer, except
Yeah.
it's our
You can't
truck.
see
It's
it,
our
but
mobile
it
command center.
is technically there.
We're in a truck. We're in a mobile command center truck.
That's right.
That's it.
Are you saying we're gonna end this series by gassing Ryukishi to death?
I wasn't gonna say Ryukishi. I was gonna say like all of Japan, or maybe just the town we live in.
Jeez.
But we don't live in one town, so I don't know. Should we like pick? Should we figure out what town is like between our 2 places of living and guess that town? I'm just trying to spitball on that. It's Charlie Davis here. I'm not Davis, but that's the voice I'm going with. Takano Sam, please don't misunderstand us, okay? The purpose of our research isn't to obtain a biological weapon. Instead, our goal is to prevent such weapons from coming to Japan from other countries. So this is research into self-defense. I want you to understand that.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Good. Takano hated this Australian tendency to make excuses, but she didn't let it show on her face. No matter what they said, they already saw the value in using this research toward biological weaponry, the B of ABC. However, in truth, that was just an excuse as well to make the A and the C. Because air conditioning is great. If they actually were to research biological weapons, then it would be much faster to research diseases like smallpox and anthrax instead of an unidentified disease, but then people don't know about it, like Hinamizawa syndrome. So it wasn't actually correct to say the defense agency was interested. So it wasn't actually correct to say the defense agency was interested in it as a biological weapon. In other words, Takano needed a powerful sponsor who would back her up with funding, personnel, spy agents, and a mobile command center to conduct her research in. So she also used her connections and turned to the old men behind the government and economy, reaching out to each of them and getting them to forcibly pull funding out of the defense agency under the excuse of his application toward biological weaponry. That was the truth. Damn, it's the truth. Therefore, her project wasn't officially recognized by the defense agency. To be exact, the people who secretly controlled the defense agency were the ones who knew about it. Those masterminds diverted funding from the defense agency to the ABC Alphabet Project because it was because they want to make Google. And then they pushed for Takano's research to be a part of it. Takano gets their funding and the influencers get to drain public funds through kickbacks. Everybody wins! Considering that, it was doubtful this project was genuinely about researching the next generation of deterrence arms. It was probably just an excuse for the masterminds to funnel money into their own pockets. Well, those complicated matters didn't matter to Takano. Whatever those old men influences, social influences were planning, wasn't her business. As long as she could get the funding of her research, that was enough.
But are you suggesting that Instagram influencers are behind the collapse of society?
I was going to say Twitch streamers, but you're right. Instagrammers, TikTokers. Anyway, I'm just saying. Cut that.
Cut that from the record. Strike it.
Either way, Takano had found a sponsor. Look, I want to make it clear. I have nothing against. I just want to make that super clear.
You can't make jokes that the audience doesn't have context for, Ben.
But they get to hear you laugh.
I'm cutting that.
Either way, Takano had found her sponsor. It was one of the biggest organizations around, too. This had always been her grandfather's dream. Takano was trying to stay calm, but she was about to jump up and down in excitement. She got that Moe gap. Nakagawa-kun says that once the research gets underway, he doesn't mind buying it out. Although he's still incomplete, he definitely sees potential in it.
You're absolutely right. This research is only halfway complete. Sufficient funding, facilities, and personnel will be indispensable.
About that, here's where the negotiations start, but apparently they wish to take on this research in its entirety. I feel bad saying this, but they think the burden is too much for you to bear alone, so we got this German type guy we want to pay you up with. Hearing that put quite the damper on Takano's ecstasy. She hated doctors.
I'm not trying to make money off this. I'm working as a researcher purely out of intellectual curiosity. What I need is a sponsor, and what they seek are results. That was the relationship I had hoped to establish.
Takano realized she was talking rather breathlessly, so she tried to calm herself down. Either way, they'd be back in the research. Considering they're hoping for results that merit the budget, they probably felt that Takano is still too young to handle it. Too much of a loose cannon. Oh, I know. You've been working on this for a long ass time. Hey, you don't want anyone else to just grab it from you, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for letting me know. This is why we ask questions. Oh, I totally understand that, of course. We've already informed them. So here's the compromise we came up with.
First, we'll start your research as an offshoot of the Alphabet Project. Once you have the board of directors' approval, you'll be given official funding. We'll have you participate in the project as an associate researcher, and you'll take part in the research that way.
If she wanted their funding, she'd have to fall under their authority, of course. So far, she had no objections. However, the Research Society has listed a few conditions of quid pro quo in exchange for funding this project. First, as was just mentioned, is to entrust the position of lead researcher to an individual that's skilled and talented in this field of research.
I hate to interject, but who would be more knowledgeable about this than me? Other than the late Dr. Takano, of course.
Now, please, calm down, Takano-san. I understand how you feel.
Still, how is this any different from selling my research to this individual? This isn't what we discussed at all.
Calm down, Takano-san. Those cunning old men didn't miss sight of the faint leak of anger that crossed Takano's expression. They gave evasive laughs as if remarking how immature she still was if she let her emotions show over such a little thing. However, they weren't laughing to look down on Takano. I feel like they were. On the contrary, they were trying to tell her to wait until the end. Of course, we'll make sure you get your way. Koizumi-sensei told me to take good care of you. Take a good care of you, even. Do you think I would just ignore you after he told me all that? Don't we worry your pretty little head. Please let me work these things out. I'm sure you'll be very happy.
What do you mean?
You see, I get to select the person in charge. Ha ha ha! But everybody chortled except Takano. After a moment, she chortled too. In other words, he meant that he would find just the right person. The defense agency had suggested finding an expert to lead the project because they didn't feel comfortable with just Takano. However, Takano's sponsor was the one tasked to find such a person. In that moment, Takano realized it. How wonderful it is to have such a powerful backer. Let me work it out. I'll find some candidates for you. All you have to do is pick the one you think would be the dumbest. I mean, the most suitable. The most easily manipulated. Takano felt better after hearing all that. While she wouldn't be the official head of the project, she would end up leading it from the shadows. Of course, she wasn't an expert per se, but she had guts and passion. Having a partner would actually be beneficial. Give me some time to talk to the other end. I'll make sure you'll be happy with the outcome. Please, just be patient for a while.
I understand. Thank you for everything.
Oh, by the way, it's not just the defense agency. Nagata-kun from the Ministry of Health and Welfare is willing to help you too. He introduced me to Ito-kun from the National Institute of Infectious Diseases. That's a fun name. He's willing to help you with equipment and other technology.
Really? Thank you so much.
You could build a whole fucking medical center. Aha! This is a national project, isn't it? National project. Congratulations, Takano-san. This is all because of your effort and the deceased Dr. Takano's hard work.
Oh no, this is all because of Dr. Takano. I haven't done anything yet.
He's just so cool. Oh, being humble is a good virtue. Just like Koizumi-sensei told me, you truly are a nice person, aren't you? No wonder he adores you and totally wants to, smooch you up.
Anyway, they want you to join the defense agency. Luckily, you have a doctor's license, right? We'll secure your position as a medical officer of the TRDI.
Do you mean I'll be a public servant? I wasn't expecting that.
All the organizations that are involved with the Alphabet Project are public institutions. The SDF is actually interested in the research as well, and they're making strong requests to dispatch some of their personnel too, so depending on the circumstances, you may be treated as an SDF member.
Well, just think of those matters as officials squabbling over jurisdiction. So to stand above those officials, you'll need your own official position, no matter what. We'll make sure you'll be happy, so please don't worry about anything.
I understand. I'll let you work things out, but knowing Dr. Takano's research was once rejected by the old Japanese military, it's hard to believe that the Self-Defense Force is interested in it now.
Well, that couldn't be stopped. With the war situation worsening, the Japanese military sought something with immediate effects, something that could turn the war around. I don't think they were looking down on Dr. Takano's research. This wasn't true, of course. He was talking out his ass. Takano already heard that confession from the old man.
And scene?
Is that actually the end?
No.
Okay, here we go. She exhaled. To Takano, it was like the meeting in front of her was happening somewhere far away. She had longed for this day to come and worked so hard to reach it. Finally, her grandfather and his research were attaining recognition. This was the day she dreamed of. So she was frightened just imagining that it might be an actual dream. True joy can't be felt all at once. Oftentimes, it's a delayed reaction. Takano thought that must be exactly what she was feeling. I think, I imagine you'll be probably given a field officer's rank. Since you'll be second in command, you'll likely be a major.
That's wonderful. Major Takano.
Whoa!
Huh? Wait.
Hold on. This ain't a Takano line.
Fuck. That's a point.
We get a point.
That's
Just one point. One big little point. There it goes. Bing!
That's wonderful. Major Takano, huh? I'm a little jealous. As a man, I wish I had a rank like that. Boy, oh boy, Major Takano, huh?
As a man, can't lie.
Major. What does that signify?
Well, reasonably high in the rank system of the Self-Defense Force there. It's like a sub-manager at a company. Yes, that will be your rank once the project gets underway.
It's equivalent to a lieutenant commander in the old Japanese military. What a coincidence. Dr. Takano was also a lieutenant commander in the old military.
It's like history is repeating itself.
Ben, you're telling me that this story about time looping is...
What? And
That's
the past and stuff from the past coming back to haunt you, and now people who are dead are like coming back and stuff.
This is getting a little ridiculous.
It's too bad. Takano remembered suddenly that she was in a time loop. They were right. Her grandfather had been a lieutenant commander of the Japanese military. How did you forget that? Oh my god. Everything she had done until today was so she could literally continue her grandfather's research. Now everything had fallen into place. I mean, we haven't even hit on the head with the most obvious if you're a Japanese person, the most obvious symbolism of Takano carrying on his research, but I'm sure we'll get to that. Mm-hmm. Now, everything had fallen into place. She had even been granted the same rank as her grandfather. She had always believed that succeeding his research would be proof that they had a bond tighter than blood, and now she would even be the same rank as him. This is fate, Takano thought. Maybe this is even a message from Grandpa. Yes, it must have been a shout of encouragement from heaven. It was proof that she inherited not only his research, but his will as well. Takano couldn't help but feel a sense of destiny for attaining the rank of major.
Grandpa, I'm finally here.
That's ominous as shit. Nobody else could hear her ramblings of a crazy person, but her grandfather in heaven could, because that's totally how that works. That's what Takano believed. Can't disprove it. She had only come so far. There was still a lot of things to do for this research to be recognized as a great work. Otherwise, her grandfather won't become a god. She wouldn't become one either. You must become a god. That was in her grandfather's will. I was unable to do so. That line preceded it. It was her grandfather's dying wish. Her grandfather entrusted it to her, all of his research. A god can't be physically brought back to life. A god is made in the hearts of the people who remain alive. Her grandfather will live on in her heart. His exploits will be known to many, and all the scholars will fight to read his documents, to steal them from each other. And they will learn about Hifumi Takano, who began his research during the war. They will know that nobody understood him, and that he ended up devoting his lonely life to his research. And finally, they will extol his grand achievements. And he will become a god.
And scene.
Become as gods. Become as gods.
It's kind of weird how these scenes, like, if it was any other character we were following in this story, it would be in, like, first-person narration, right?
Yeah, we're following him for the third person.
Which is kind of like...
It's a bit weird, but I don't know.
I don't know whether it's Ryukishi trying to maintain distance from his villain.
I think that's what it is. Just like... I think that Ryukishi is aware that Takano was a fucking maniacal psychopath in the last chapter. Like, it's called the Massacre Arc because she literally kills everyone and reveals the fact that she's always been the massacrer.
Yeah.
Like, she's, you know, so trying to get your audience to empathize with her, I think that putting, you know, if you have a story, then, like, you get towards the end of the story and you're like, all right, now you have to see it from their perspective. Shunting you into their boots isn't necessarily the best way to get you to empathize with them.
Are you having a dig?
It might be a bit of a shoehorn way of doing things, is all I'm saying.
You having a dig right now?
I would never be referring to anything in particular. But I'm just saying this came out in July. That's all I'm saying. July 2020, and there were some hot topics in the gaming industry. But yeah, like, I mean, that's the thing, right? Ryukishi is pretty, like, conscious of that fact, that it is difficult to get someone to directly empathize with your antagonist unless you give us that perspective, that outsider perspective looking in.
I think...
because we also don't want to, like, completely redeem her because she's still our antagonist, right?
Yeah. It's just interesting because I think one of my favorite parts about the early part of this story was seeing Arc 1 from inside Keiichi's head and witnessing him go insane internally.
Yeah.
And
it's the best part of that fucking chapter.
Yeah, and I think that this would have been you know, there still is the opportunity for that to happen with Takano, where we internally see her being insane. And, you know, maybe that's the play of this arc, is that we see it from the outside, empathize with her, and then later we look inside and go, oh god, what the fuck?
This is her actual thought process, right? Yeah.
So, you know, because it did open with, like, scenes of her internal monologue, but they weren't, like, twisted as such yet.
No. I mean, yeah, it was, like, her hopefulness and, like...
Like, I tried to deliver it relatively twisted.
Yeah, sure.
Because, you know, that's clearly the character I'm trying to portray. But it'll be interesting to see how that thematic gets played out as this arc goes on, because I'm less engaged by this being in third person, but I think that that's a good thing.
It's deliberate, I think. But yeah, I mean, we've got a long way to go. We're only 2 chapters in. I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot. And we still have the code to get to. So
oh god,
look forward to that.
Next time.